Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Sambiwadi. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, on our last podcast, we spoke about President Biden's repugnant address to the nation, which was hysterical and profoundly dishonest, and as always, forcing American people, American taxpayers, to pay for something that has nothing to do with them, and expecting it and denouncing those who actually were concerned about how their money is being spent. How dare you worry about how your money is being spent?
And on top of it, George, I think it's something the Americans are not aware of, but how disliked the United States is around the world.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The reputational damage is very, very real. Yep. And, I come across it all the time. I don't get any personal angst towards me personally, but, about, what is your government doing? Do the American people know what's being done in their name? I'm asked this all of the time. Right. And so the reputational damage is very, very real and tangible. I mean, the U.S. State Department had put out like a global international travel warning. I mean, right. The whole world, be careful. Right. I'm sorry.
Yep. And then on the very same day, Biden was addressing the nation. Ursula von der Leyen, who is the president of the EU Commission, was in Washington, D.C., addressing the Hudson Institute, which is a kind of a neocon think tank. It's been around for many years. It had been originally kind of the brainchild of Herman Kahn, who was a kind of a strange guy, preoccupied at one stage in his career with thermonuclear war, but then became a futurist, making all sorts of predictions about the future, not one of which has ever come true, which is the bane of anyone who goes around thinking that he knows what's going to happen in the future. But he wrote books predicting what will happen what the world will be like in 50 years, and boom, not one of those things have proven to be true. But nonetheless, he had a certain...
We've regressed.
Exactly. Anyway, so she was at the Hudson Institute, and she made a full-throated support, obviously, of Israel and Ukraine, and of course she likened the two in much the same way as Biden did, and she has now come under some criticism within the EU. So first of all, I want to take a look at what she said to the Hudson Institute, and here we have this. And then she starts off. She knows her audience. So she's talking about Reagan, Reagan, everyone falls down on their knees. And said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. He touched all hearts in Germany, and Reagan never stopped working for exactly that dream. He believed that the Atlantic community is the house of democracy. And for him, that we must shelter democracy from all the winds that blow. The winds are not just blowing today, they are at gale force. Our democracies are under sustained and systemic attack by those who abhor freedom because it threatens their rule.
Who are those? Who are those people?
Well, that's an interesting thing. Whenever you listen to these speeches, whether it's from her or from Biden, it's never clear. There's this sort of nebulous enemy. Sometimes it's Trump, sometimes it's Trump's followers, sometimes it's Russia, sometimes it's China, sometimes it's Hamas. They all these completely different, people who have nothing whatever in common. But the one thing they have in common is that Ursula von der Leyen and Joe Biden don't like them. I mean, that's exactly what they have in common. For more than 600 days.
But even though in the United States, Queen Ursula and old Joe, they are crushing freedom of speech.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So they arrogate to themselves freedom and democracy without ever really addressing the issue that what are they actually doing to promote freedom and democracy? They just say, well, we represent freedom and democracy, and that's why we have the right to take away your freedom and your democracy because we represent it. So we are the interpreters of whatever freedom and democracy mean.
And no one can challenge that.
No.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is trying. He left the Democratic primary because the Democratic Party rigged all of the rules against him. All the Democratic small d rules
That's
against.
right. That's right. Yeah, that's it exactly. For more than 600 days now, our friends in Ukraine have been fighting and dying for their freedom against Russian aggression. And then she goes on in this vein. And now Israel has suffered the worst terrorist attack in its history and the worst mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust. So again, they bring this up in much the way the sort of American and Israel firsters and the neocons, they talk about this as this was a murder of Jews and the Holocaust, even though it has nothing to do with it. I mean, this wasn't an attack. You know, did they attack the biggest synagogue in Europe, which is here in Budapest? No. Did they attack any synagogues in Berlin, synagogues anywhere? No. It was an attack on Israel. And then it says, these two crises, however different, call on Europe and America to take a stand and to stand together. Vladimir Putin wants to wipe Ukraine from the map. Hamas, supported by Iran, wants to wipe Israel from the map. Shelter democracies we must, because if we do not, the horror will spread.
Okay, I didn't know that Putin wants to wipe Ukraine from the map.
Yes, I didn't know that either. He hasn't said that. I mean, he's never...
Iran has never said it either. It was a gross, probably the worst translation in the history of the world. Okay, if I could paraphrase what the original, the existence or the existence of Israel is an unfortunate historical fact.
Right.
And that was translated into must be wiped off the map. Okay.
Right. Yes. But again, it's hard to say. Hamas wants to wipe Israel from the map. Now, Hamas, you know, they're based in Gaza. You know, that's about 2 million, 2.1, 2.2 million. Israel is 4 times the size of Gaza. And Israel has nuclear weapons, is overwhelmingly stronger. It can do pretty much whatever it wants to Gaza. I mean, it basically has Gaza as like, you know, and the torture chamber. It's like a torture chamber. You decide what torture instruments you're going to use next. I mean, the idea that this is some sort of a fair combat. And
well, but that's such a good point, George, and we need to bring it up more often. They bring up there's moral equivalency issues all the time, and there's the symmetry of power. Well, there is no symmetry of power here, okay? Right. But they make it always sound, and you know, they'll show the child. I think this goes back to 2000. Well, there have been 4 of them already, but there was a cover of Time magazine, and it had the death of an Israeli child and the death of a Palestinian child. Well, both were that was true, but the multiplier effect for the children of Gaza is so much bigger. Right. And so they're always trying to find it's like, you know, it's 2 equal forces. It's never been that way. It was just
2 equal forces, and that's if you're lucky. Most of the time, it's just simply Israel is the victim of Hamas. I mean, you know, that's it. There's you know, nothing happened before. It's just Israel was attacked out of the blue. It's an attack on the Jews. You know, Hamas just simply attacked the Jews because it doesn't like Jews.
It was an attack on Zionism, is what it was on. Okay, right. Look, you know, working at RT, we have a Arabic section. Obviously, they're 24/7 covering this here, and I know many of them. And we've talked about the conflict. The word Jew is never mentioned, George. It never. No. It's Israel. No. It's Zionism. That's right. Ben Shapiro makes it, you know, like the Holocaust is just around the corner every day of the week.
That's right. But that's done deliberately, and it's done obviously deliberately because of the emotional weight that is attached to the Holocaust and to the murder of the Jews. So if you talk about that and keep harping on about that, then of course everybody is intimidated and think, well, wow, this is you know, the murder of the Jews. I mean, that's the worst thing imaginable, and that's what we will accept. That's the worst thing imaginable, mass murder of Jews. Just as anti-Semitism is the worst character trait possible. I mean, if you're anti-Semitic, then you are really a very, very deplorable human being, to say the least. So that's why they bring this up, like, well, he's anti-Semitic because, well, that's it. Well, if he's anti-Semitic, then there's no point in even talking to this, subhuman.
Yeah, but it's in this context, it's always a cudgel to promote a genocide.
Right. That's right. That's right. And then she goes on. Then there was no limit to the blood Hamas terrorists wanted to spill. They went home by home. They burnt people alive. They mutilated children and even babies. Why? Because they were Jews. Because they were living in the state of Israel. Again, that's not, that's not the case.
I don't want to sound glib here, George, but have you seen any of these pictures of these burnt people?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
No. Have you seen any of these baby pictures?
No, that's and we know that there was no evidence for that. All the story about the beheaded babies, and even the most famous, the one that went the rounds in the first few days about that young woman who was raped, and then a naked body was paraded around, and everyone was gleefully gloating about all that, and then that never happened. She wasn't even murdered. Eventually she was that young woman was alive. She was in the hospital in Gaza, but that went the rounds as if people had seen it. But in fact, no one had seen it. They just said they heard about this. That she was raped, and then the naked body was paraded around, and the crowds were chortling with delight.
Well, I mean, going home by home, what I understand, and I'm perfectly willing to be proven wrong, really, with evidence, but they attacked military bases as well.
That's right. No one ever talks about it.
As far as I understand, George, they have two generals of one rank or another in captivity. They went to the military.
Right.
Think about it, everyone. Think about it.
Right.
A place that has been under siege for 17 years. They do a prison break. They get into Israeli military bases. They take their vehicles, they take their weapons, their ammo, their personnel. Now, the story about the rave dance, I've heard it said over and over and over again, but I don't see, is there a crime scene? I don't even know.
I haven't seen it either.
It may exist. I don't know, but I haven't seen it.
No, exactly. I mean, until the war is over, and then there's a full inquiry about what happened. All of this is just simply, people repeating things, and it just goes by word of mouth. You repeat something, and then next time you repeat it, it's even worse than the last time, and then it gets even worse by dint of repetition. So we really don't know. But the few things that did cause a sensation, such as the 40 beheaded babies, or that the raped young woman, they've turned out to be false. And so, but look, I mean, this is the same woman who went to Bucha. I remember the theater that she put on when she went to Bucha, and immediately declared, this is, that's it. This is a horrific crime scene. You don't know. This is, you went there days and days afterwards. How the hell do you know that this is a crime scene? So nothing she says is to be believed. And then she says, they're mutable because they were Jews, because they were living in the state of Israel. And Hamas's explicit goal is to eradicate Jewish life from the Holy Land, which is not true. But she of course repeats it. And then these terrorists, supported by their friends in Tehran, will never stop. But of course, they're supported by Tehran, but I thought that NATO, which supports Ukraine, is not a party to the conflict. So why bring Tehran into it? I mean, Tehran's just not a party to the conflict. I mean, whatever support it provides to Hamas, it's still not a party to the conflict. So let's not bring it in.
And there are plenty of sources all through the region, and they stand on different sides in dealing with Israel, almost to the person saying Tehran was taken by surprise by all this. Again, George is right. When the history of this is written, maybe we will learn differently. But after 17 days, no one's turned up any evidence outside of Lindsey Graham going on.
That's right. No, exactly. And so far, the U.S. government has not made that claim. And I think if they had some evidence, they would have made that claim. Yeah.
That's always the case, you guys. George is right. If they had the evidence, they would present it, but they don't.
Right. Exactly. And then says, so Israel has the right to defend itself in line with humanitarian law. Now, Israel has never done anything in line with humanitarian law, but I always love it when they say in line with humanitarian law. When was the last time Israel ever did anything in line with humanitarian law?
Well, listen to Israeli officials over the last 17 days. They've made it very clear they're going to do whatever they want. Okay. They have this I mean, it can't be more clear, more black and white. Okay. I mean, the fact is, what they've done to the people of Gaza for the last 17 years is a war crime.
Right. Yeah. No, that's right. And remember, I mean, when you have Naftali Bennett, who brought up the subject of Dresden. Remember, he's brought up Dresden approvingly about what the British and the Americans did to Dresden, and said, you know, he didn't just say to the British interviewer, hey, you're just being hypocritical, you condemn us, but what about what the British and the Americans did Dresden? Because that would have been a stupid thing to say, because what the hell has this young journalist got to do with what happened in 1945? But the reason he said it is that, well, what you do to the Nazis is justifiable. Whatever you do, it's justifiable. You pulverize their cities, that's justifiable, and that's what we're going to do in Gaza. That's why he brought it up, not in order to say, hey, you're being hypocritical. You know, what about Dresden?
Well, if the young interviewer had been better educated, he did the best he could. I saw it. There are two things. Dresden can be brought up in the context, two wrongs don't make a right. It is widely recognized that was wrong. Okay. Right. That's why we had the Nuremberg process of condemning.
Right. But having said that,
maybe not at that moment. But
but what you just said, having said that, of course, none of the crimes committed by the Allied forces were ever prosecuted at Nuremberg, which is, of course, what vitiated really the whole Nuremberg process, because it was victor's justice. So Dresden, Hiroshima, you know, all the other things were never prosecuted. So, so that's why, you know.
But because of the Western atrocities, and let's call it what it is, it's true. Okay, we came to an understanding and couched in international law that you should not do those things. Okay, though George is absolutely right, the Western allies were never held to account, but there was the understanding is that shouldn't do that kind of stuff anymore.
Exactly, you shouldn't do that. You know, don't do that again. All right, we're not going to do it. I have visited Israel many times in my life, but this time I saw a nation shocked to its core. And from the families of the abducted to President Herzog, Prime Minister Netanyahu, right across the unity government, they all had the same request: solidarity and clear words. I remember she's speaking here already. Almost 2 weeks had elapsed since October the 7th. And again, your only concern is what happened on October the 7th. I mean, everything that's happened since then, you seem completely uninterested in.
Well, this is crisis tourism, isn't it?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Queen Ursula, as I will refer to her, is that there is obviously no, you know, Putin just woke up one day and said, invade Ukraine, okay? And then, you know, on October 6th, somebody in Gaza said, let's do it today, guys, okay? No context, okay?
That's right. And this is the least we can do for the people of Israel as defenders of a free world where hate, terror, and anti-Semitism have no place. But again, you know, as we'll look later, I mean, other people are thinking, all right, but you're a European, you're president of the European Commission. Why exactly are you getting involved in this? I mean, why shouldn't you be a kind of an outsider trying to bring peace to the two parties? Why exactly are you throwing in your lot with one side? And particularly, you're trying to throw in the weight of the EU on the side of Israel. Why is that? What, you know, who gave you the mandate? Who gave you any kind of authority to try to do that?
Well, George and I remember, and actually we don't have to reach too far back in our memory, where EU officials or, you know, high-ranking European officials would have just gone right to Jordan, called the Egyptian president in, maybe trying to get a Saudi representative. At the time, maybe the President Assad of Syria, and say, hey, how do we cool this thing down? She's done exactly the opposite. She went to the Imperium. Okay,
that's right. You're absolutely right. She actually, just lit the fuse. I mean, she just poured gasoline onto the fire. She did exactly that, rather than to let's cool things down. Let everyone just sort of take a deep breath. She did the opposite. Hey, why don't I light a match and make sure the fire spreads even more.
Well, George, let's be very frank here. Her tenure at the EU is coming to an end, and she's looking for another job. Exactly. Okay, that's exactly what she's doing.
And we know what. Yeah,
she went to smooze. She went to cocktails. And saying, I'm going to have some free time here pretty soon. Okay, look, I'm looking at all my options. Okay, and after giving a speech like that, they're going to be, we have a good use for you.
We have very good use for you, because Stoltenberg, he wants to quit. He wants to take up this job as the head of the central bank in Norway. It sounds like he wants to help himself to some of the money in that central bank, but he wants that presidency of the Norwegian central bank. So that slot is open. And she's obviously angling for that slot as NATO Secretary General. And therefore, she's going out of her way to please the Americans, because all of the other people, however slavishly pro-American they may be, it's never quite pro-American enough. And they're not quite enough for our taste. Like Ben Wallace, poor guy, constantly kowtowing to the Americans. It just wasn't enough no, sorry.
Ursula, Queen Ursula, she has no real opinions on anything. Okay, Wallace, I don't know, a Brit, we still got some scores to settle here, and all that. Right. And she's a woman, yes. And Angela Merkel's favorite, a godchild. I mean, she just hits every single box. Right. Okay. That's right. Because she's easily controlled. She has no strong opinions. She's not a person of intellect, okay, at all. Okay, look how she handled COVID. You couldn't have handled it worse.
No. She's always been a staggeringly incompetent person.
Yes, and that's why she's perfect.
She was a terrible defense minister, but somehow Merkel liked her. I mean, it's always been a little bit of a mystery. What did Merkel see in her? I mean, there's some speculation that she's kind of the opposite of Merkel. She has 7 children. She's the child of a family with that 7 children. She's always very nicely turned out. She's kind of polished, hair always nicely coiffed. The opposite of Merkel was a little bit of a dumpling.
Dumpling, kind of frappy,
Yeah. So that's the only reason why I could say what it is that Merkel saw in her that pushed her into all these positions.
And we see how Ursula just fails upward continually. Yes. So there's nothing stopping her.
Nothing. And then the Palestinian people are also suffering from Hamas's terror. This is the point at which they do this phony, condescending sympathy for the Palestinians. We just love the Palestinian people. We absolutely adore them.
But the problem with this approach, and it is so patently obvious, is that okay, the Palestinian people are the victims of Hamas. So why do you tell them 1 million plus to go south in Gaza, and you bomb the south?
Yes.
Where's your compassion for Palestinian people?
Yes, no, exactly. It's nothing more than just the hot air.
And can someone explain to me, because I'm really having a hard time working on this here. They're letting in drops and drops and drops of aid, but they're bombing civilians at the same time. I mean, so what's this aid for? Actually,
no, that's exactly.
If you are bombing these people, presumably you just want a Photoshop of a truck going across a border.
That's exactly what it is. The whole point of this humanitarian aid is so that we can say to ourselves, look at how great we are. We want humanitarian aid. We're getting on the phone. I'm working the phones to make sure that humanitarian aid goes into Gaza. I'm on the phone all day. I want more trucks going in there. And in the meantime, they're being pulverized by Israeli bombs. But they feel, look, all this newspaper, God, the Biden administration is working round the clock to make sure that yet another humanitarian convoy goes in, even as the bombing continues all the time. That's how they want to feel good about themselves. They're on the right side. They're good, worthy liberals. But the thing about the condescending attitude of the Palestinian people, it's a little like the way they like the Russian people. We don't know anything against them. We like the Russian people. The Russian people are great, fantastic people. It's just we don't like the leaders. It's the leaders that don't. So why are you then imposing all these sanctions? Why are you punishing the Russian people with your sanctions if it's just the leaders that you don't like? Well, of course, it's nothing. It's just the way, yeah, of course, we have nothing against the Russian people. We absolutely love the Russian people. My favorite place to go on holiday. But that's the way they want to sound.
George always does a good forensic study of this here, and I'm sure, George, we're going to get the 17 years of the blockade, okay, coming up. Okay, we're going to give a history of Hamas and its origins, and the Western origins of Hamas. Actually, I'm sure this is all coming up in her speech, right?
No. Yes, strangely enough, I think the limitations of time. You don't have that much time when you go your Hudson Institute. They're very tight, very strict about time.
I'll err on the side of brevity. Okay,
exactly, brevity. No, sorry, I just couldn't get it. They were very tight with me on time. Said we have tripled our humanitarian support to Palestinians in Gaza, but we are also reviewing all our development aid to Palestine in view of a very volatile situation on the ground. What does that mean? We're reviewing all our development. It's like we're reviewing it. It's like when somebody,
that really is kind of striking, and I think it got past the censor. Why is she using the term Palestine?
Reviewing to Palestine. Yeah, no, that's the exact development aid to Palestine. Yes, when
I thought there was no Palestine.
No. And we are redoubling our engagement in the region. Oh, thank God. We have seen the Arab streets filled with rage all across the region. The risk of a regional spillover is real. That is exactly. That is, yeah.
Say, aren't you calling for a ceasefire, a humanitarian?
Right, exactly. So exactly, why are you then, being so incendiary? I mean, if there's a real danger of this regional spillover, shouldn't you be trying to calm everything down? Everybody just take it easy, take a deep breath.
Well, don't go crazy. Lifetime, George, that's what the Europeans did.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So this is exactly what Hamas was hoping to achieve, and this can derail the recent and historic rapprochement between Israel and its Arab neighbors. Now, notice what she's done here. This is exactly the way the Americans talk, as if the issue is Israel and its Arab neighbors. But that isn't the issue. That's never been the issue, Israel and its Arab neighbors. The issue has always been the Palestinians. It's always been at the heart of the problem that Israel has had with its Arab neighbors. There's no reason why Israel can't have a peace with Egypt or Jordan or Syria or whatever. But you have to deal with this central problem, and it's been a central problem since the founding of Israel, which is the Palestinians. So to pretend that it's all about rapprochement between Israel and its Arab neighbors, it's never been about that.
Well, they could. Well, my favorite one is the Saudi 2002 plan, but there have been many of them.
Oh, there've been many, yeah.
There's been many of them. But well, let's just for a nanosecond focus on that. It was essentially, it was a Saudi initiative saying the Arab world will recognize the state of Israel, have diplomatic relations with it when you solve to any kind of reasonable extent the Palestinian issue. Okay, that was it. That was a bold move in 2002, to be honest with you, George.
Right,
that wasn't enough.
Okay? No, exactly. And I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that was they said a just solution to the refugee problem, and there would have to be a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. But again, it's a reasonable solution. There's nothing unreasonable. What's unreasonable about it? I mean, just saying, they want to drive Jews into the sea, they want to destroy Israel. That's not what the plan said. The plan was quite specific, which is a just solution to the refugee problem and the creation of a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital.
And if you think about it, everyone, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but think of the 750,000 people that were forced to leave their homes in 1948 with the establishment of the Israeli state. Their descendants are still around, and they have multiplied. There are millions in Jordan. There are still plenty in Lebanon. There are many in Egypt as well, and of course in the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, in Israel itself, and obviously Gaza. So because they refuse to deal with this issue, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of the countries in which Palestinians find, the descendants of these Palestinians find themselves, they're not particularly welcomed, okay? They're not first-class citizens. They struggle, okay? And that keeps their focus on, we want our own state, because the state we're in right now, well, they tolerate us, but we want to be more than tolerated. Do you see how generation after generation this has gotten worse and worse? But the Israelis would have you say, oh, it's just gone away. Don't worry about it, okay?
Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, for the other Arab states, there's no real obligation on their part,
absolutely,
to do anything for the Palestinians, because they'll say, well, we didn't create this problem. I mean, in other words, so we don't have to, actually go out of the way. So this kind of the Zionist argument, the Zionist apologist arguments in the United States and elsewhere. Well, look at the Arabs. They haven't done anything for the Palestinians. Look, why couldn't they create a state for the Palestinians? But then they say, well, why should we? I mean, why? I mean, after all, we didn't do this to them. So yeah, Jordan hasn't done anything, or Egypt hasn't done anything. But say, yeah, it's not our problem. Why should we have to solve this problem that wasn't created by us?
What the U.S. and its allies say, they're actually proposing another Sykes-Picot. You give up your own territory, okay? Right. I mean, I'm going back to how the original map of the Greater Middle East was made up during the Second World War. First World War, and just saying, why don't you just give up your land for these people? But and George has mentioned it many times, and it's very important to remember, Israel is the creation of the United Nations, so it is a United Nations issue.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. Exactly. So anyway, so then says, she can down. Just weeks ago, this is Norman, we announced together with our American friends a new transcontinental corridor that would link Europe to Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and from there to India. Who cares? Who cares? What has it got to do with anything? So, oh, good. Oh,
no, but we've come across this in the last few days. This is a stab at the Chinese Belt
and Road Initiative.
Belt and Road Initiative. Okay, we have our alternative here.
Right, but it's got nothing to do with the problem. I mean, it's like, you tried this. This is the Trump plan. Well, we'll just give you a lot of money, and then you go get rich and whatever. And it didn't work. I mean, it was obvious that, you remember when Jared Kushner came up with this, this is our Middle East plan. Everyone was waiting for the Trump Middle East plan. We'll give you a lot of money, and you're going to build up all kinds of casinos and real estate, or blah, blah, blah. Well, they weren't buying it. I mean, they said that we're not interested in this. And then, of course, that led to the Abraham Accords. Again, you're not addressing the central problem. You think that just by ignoring the problem is just going to go away. And then there's a corridor for trade that would help de-risk all our economies, including from our over-dependence on China. It could contribute to both growth and reconciliation between neighbors. Again, you're missing the point.
I think she's reading a different speech right now. Did you do that? Are you sabotaging her?
I remember that guy that you like so much, Jon Stewart. In one of his monologues or whatever, he was talking about, if only we can get sort of Jews and Arabs to get on, that's all. It's a conflict, Jews and Arabs. If I wish they'd stop hating each other. As if that's the problem, Jews and Arabs. So it's like, but that's the perception of people. And I guess he would regard himself as a liberal American Jew. It's just Jews and Arabs misunderstanding each other. It's like blacks and whites, just all get around the table and sing Kumbaya.
Well, the Jews and Arabs got along just fine for centuries, okay?
Right. Yeah.
So exactly. I don't know what he's talking about.
No, exactly. And but there are those who seek more violence because they know the cost of any instability for us. Iran, Hamas's patron, only wants to fuel the fire of chaos. I think she knows her audience, which is why she keeps bringing up
Hudson
Iran.
I mean, if they were talking about, avocado recipes, Iran would have to be in there somewhere.
And I don't like Iranian avocados.
I don't like Iranian avocados. Okay.
Only wants to fuel the fire. Russia, Iran's wartime customer, is watching carefully. Russia and Hamas are alike. Oh, let's go. Russia and Hamas are alike.
This is kind of a primitive logic thing. If A is true, then B must be, and then her last sentence is Russia and Hamas are alike. I think that's her logic.
Russia, and then as president, remember she had earlier said that Hamas wants to wipe all the Jews out from the Holy Land or something like that. So is that Russia's position? I mean, does Ursula wants to say that's what Russia wants? That would be their own people. The Russia would then want their own people wiped out. As President Zelensky has said, their essence is the same. Ooh, President Zelensky said it. Ooh.
The great philosopher.
The philosopher king. Both have deliberately sought out innocent civilians, including babies and children, to kill and take hostage. This is a barbaric way to fight. And left unchecked, this contagion has the potential to spread from Europe across the Middle East to the Indo-Pacific. Huh. Okay. Western resolve.
Well, it's so interesting. Don't you see the COVID language here? It's an epidemic, it's a pandemic, and fear. Okay. They're taking that the pandemic paradigm and they're readjusting it for their chosen designs.
No, I think that's very very astute, because I think it is it's a kind of variation on the domino theory, which is because it's even worse than dominoes, because this is just spreads quickly, from one person to the other, and boom, it's already around the world in no time. So it's much scarier than falling dominoes. So yeah, it's a virus, and suddenly it's the Indo-Pacific. Whoa, that's but never quite. What is it? What's going to spread to the Indo-Pacific? I mean, she never really specifies, but it's something really nasty.
Okay, well, I'm sure if we called on our good friends at Gallup and say, can you do a public opinion poll on the Indo-Pacific, which I hate that term, and where does Hamas and Israel rate? Okay, is it in the top 100? Okay.
Yes. Western resolve is being tested every day by those searching for any weakness. Any success they gain will inspire more violence aimed at upending the existing order. I love the way you identify the existing order with yourself and your few friends. That's the order. Some people may not like this particular order, this existing order, which must be maintained because all these terrible people are trying to upend it.
So we've already seen this the COVID paradigm employed here, substituting for the domino effect. But then you go, and I'm not sure how aware whoever wrote this, because obviously I don't think she did. But Western resolve is being tested every day by those searching for any weaknesses. See, this goes back to attacks on the church, okay, and on the laity, okay, because the devil Satan is always looking for ways. This is just rehashing the paradigms, and she's refashioning them for her own purposes here. It's quite infantile.
I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right. That it's trying to scare the people that, hey, that this could spread and these terrible things are going to happen to you. But she's never able to express, well, what's going to happen? I mean, how does this in any way threaten us unless you get involved? If you get involved and stick your thumb in there, then it might indeed spread to us. But otherwise, this is a conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. What's it got to do with us? But she wants to persuade, this is really very much to do with us. We're in danger. But the only danger is if the United States and Ursula von der Leyen decide to throw their weight in and take one side. It's the same with Ukraine. There was no threat to anyone in Europe from the war in Ukraine. But once NATO gets involved, then indeed there is a threat. I mean, anything could get out of control, and that's what she's advocating.
If there are people in the West that have studied this conflict since 1948, and the only logical conclusion would be to say, look, pull the aircraft carriers out, send no more money. Look, your project has failed. You've gotten the worst possible outcome right now, right as we speak, George. The jig is up. The project has failed. It's time to rethink. It is time to stop the war, end the blockade, and and there's so many blueprints are out there. Amalgamation of those could solve this here. But see, the U.S. and Ursula is doing exactly the opposite. Zionism has failed. Yes. It doesn't keep Jews safe in Israel. It's done.
Yeah, that's true. And then said, but escalation is not inevitable. Instability can be contained. Dialogue between Israel and its neighbors can and must continue. Again, this is a nebulous entity. What dialogue can continue? What dialogue has there been? I mean, we had Oslo. That was 30 years ago. I mean, what happened there? I mean, that's it. It just, because...
No, but this is just like saying, everybody needs to get on Telegram and WhatsApp. That way we can talk.
Yes.
The retort would be, what would you talk about?
That's right. Exactly. This time of war must also be a time of unrelenting diplomacy. Oh, this is Quincy Institute. We need the robust diplomacy brigade. Europe,
where is even relenting?
Unrelenting, yeah, that's it. Keep that word in mind. We've overused robust. Quincy put it, unrelenting, yeah, that's it. Europe, as the largest foreign investor in many countries across the region, has both leverage and a stake. So why don't you use this leverage?
Yeah.
The same is true for the United States. It is a shared American and European interest. The pursuit of a world where freedom prevails is our common destiny.
That's a choice. That's a choice. Ursula, you're hooking your train to Washington. That's your choice.
That's it. Prevails. World where freedom prevails is our common destiny. I mean, she's given to these totally empty, vacuous phrases. Where freedom prevails is our common destiny. EU is every day restricting freedom. We now have this Digital Services Act, according to which some EU bureaucrat can actually just simply close down and fine and basically ruin social media if they don't take down messages that the EU wants taken down. This is just some unelected bureaucrat who's making these decisions. So where is this freedom prevailing? There's now less freedom than there was 10, 20, 30 years ago, which is why it is imperative that we speed up Ukraine's path to victory. Ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine will win. You can, boom, you're going to hear the audience, yay! Or the audience just goes stamping their feet, But they need the hardware to get the job done. And we must deliver it to save lives. This is the perfect encapsulation of this war is peace logic that Stoltenberg advocates, Annalena Baerbock. We must deliver this hardware in order to save lives. So we need more weapons sent there to save lives. I mean,
that's the title of your book, isn't it, George?
Yes, Bombs for Peace. Yeah. But the whole idea that the more you send in, the more lives you save. It's so insane. It's so defying any common sense, any logic. But that's, they wedded to this because it makes the EU and NATO sound like, well, we're the good guys. We're trying to save lives. We're trying to promote peace.
Well, again, who wrote this? I'm sure. I think they're just intellectually challenged. I mean, what does Ukraine will win? What does that have to do with will be proud defenders inside NATO? What's the connection right there? Okay, I thought it was about Ukraine's sovereignty, Ukraine's national self-determination. No, it's all about NATO membership.
That's
okay.
right. There will be...
It kind of diminishes everything, doesn't it?
It does. Proud defenders inside NATO, defending what against what? What are they going to be defending? The proud defenders inside NATO. But now it is up to us in the West to help make that happen as fast as possible, really fast. I'm proud that Europe and the United States have been leading on this together. Putin has made 3 major strategic mistakes. I always love it that Stoltenberg, Blinken, they always have this, Putin made all these mistakes. Oh yeah, tell us what these mistakes were. First, he was convinced he would take Kiev in a matter of days. Oh.
You don't, that is not knowable.
No,
okay?
Completely. You have no idea what he was thinking. Ukraine's courage showed him otherwise. Second, he expected Europe to be hesitant and undecided. How do you know that again? But we were fast, determined, and unwavering.
Well, I see a lot of hesitation and a lot of undecidedness still. Okay, Ursula. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, Brussels, it will raise its cudgel against anybody that disagrees in a real democratic way, of course. George.
Right. Yes, that's right. Exactly.
One of the problems is that she speaks about Europe as something that is like organic,
yes.
And it's not.
No, of course
it's not. It's another one of these illusions out there.
That's
okay.
Right.
Because a lot of people, if just randomly, when you're in a European country, let's say you're in Austria, how do you identify? I'm Austrian. And go to Hungary. I'm Hungarian.
Yeah.
How many of you say no? I'm European. I'm European.
Right. That's right.
How dare you call me Hungarian? Nobody. Right. That never happens anymore. That never happens.
That's exactly right. Exactly. Ask an Austrian. What do you consider yourself? Say, I'm an Austrian. And that's exactly German. Let's say German. I'm a German. And
if you ask a lot of French people, how dare you call me European? I'm French.
Right. That's right. It's an absolutely meaningless terminology, because Europe is just a geographic concept, and the idea that people identify with a geographic concept is absurd. But up to today, we have 11 packages of sanctions, and all this in close cooperation and constant coordination with the United States. Well, that's a lot. It's done you a lot of good, these 11 packages. When's the 12th package? I want the 12th. I want to see what's in the 12th package.
I think it was, I read this, they want to sanction Russia. They don't want sewing needles. Sewing needles.
That's it. That's in the 12th. The 12th package of sanctions has been announced.
That's the game changer, George.
That's it. The sewing needles, exactly.
I'm not joking, everyone. I'm not joking. Okay.
Yeah. Putin's third big, we're on to the third one. Third big strategic mistake was to believe that he could blackmail Europe with energy. Now,
never got the chance, did he?
No, but this is what she does all this, and she's always been saying this about Putin is weaponizing energy, but he never did. I mean, everything that happened with energy was done by the Europeans. I mean, the Europeans said, well, we're not going to import any coal anymore. We're not going to import oil, other than those countries that need oil, like Hungary, because they're getting it through the pipe. They don't have any access to the sea. And then the gas, and you blow up the Nord Stream gas pipeline, or the Americans did. I mean, all of this. Putin never did anything. I mean, you brought this on yourself. Putin played games with our energy. Putin cut 80% of the gas supplies in 8 months only. No, he didn't. I mean, and so we were in a severe energy crisis, but thanks to our friends in the United States and Norway, for example, we were able to diversify and get rid of our dependency on Russian gas in record time. We saved 20% energy during this winter, so we got our house in order and stood strong and united against Putin. And one thing is clear, that autocrats only understand one language, and that is the language of strength and the language of unity. I always love these cliches. I mean, her mind is completely immersed in cliches. I mean, nothing she has said is cliche free. Everything is just a cliche. So autocrats only understand the language of strength and a language of unity. Is that? I mean, how do you know that? But this is a language of strength. But what have you achieved? Everyone is paying through the nose for energy, and it's causing very serious problems throughout Europe. Of course, it's not written about sufficiently, but in almost every country, governments are in trouble because of energy costs. I mean, energy, which is fueling inflation.
I always find it kind of interesting. Someone like Ursula talking about autocrats when at the same time she can say, we have the tools.
They have the tools. That's right. We can never match the sacrifice and the bravery of the Ukrainian people, but we can stand firmly by their side.
Oh, that's cold comfort, isn't it? It's real cold comfort for us.
Exactly. We can stand firmly by their side. But this is what you always come across when you listen to these American politicians and the Europeans and NATO and everyone is saying, we're through to the end. We stand with Ukraine. We have to stand for freedom and democracy and the future of the world. So why don't you then, put on a backpack and go fight? Get involved. This is a war. I mean, you're saying this is this war, an existential struggle. Then do it. We're not gonna, get involved. No boots on the ground. So it's just totally dishonest. I mean,
it's kind of like Dick Cheney when he avoided the draft. He said, well, I had other priorities.
I had other priorities, yeah. Priceless. I had other priorities, yeah. Which, of course, is true about all of the worst neocons, or the ones who gave us the Iraq War. All of them avoided military service. And that is what we are doing for as long as it takes, not only because it is the right thing to do, but because they are fighting for our values and for our strategic security. And again, well, why don't you help them? Why don't you go in and fight? Don't just keep talking, going to the Hudson Institute, having a nice slap-up dinner in DC. Go fight. So we must support Ukraine to make this war unsustainable for Russia. Together we can do this, and we must. Because we know how Russia deals with wars. It cannot win on the ground. It tries to freeze them, just like it did with Ukraine in 2014.
And I don't know, what is that? Just like it did in 2014. What is she referring to?
I don't know what she's referring to. I mean, I guess she's referring to the start of the war in the Donbass.
Russia froze that. Oh, okay. It went on for 8 years, Ursula. Okay.
Right. But it's very interesting because she's saying that first of all, Ukraine will win, so you're going to go and keep fighting until Russia is defeated, and then she says, well, we're not even going to allow Russia to freeze this war. We're going to keep fighting. How many lives is she planning to sacrifice, or other people's lives? But how many is she doing? Because she's not even going to allow this to freeze. So that's she's ruling out any termination of this war. Somehow we're going to win. And how are you going to win? What's the plan for this victory? Because she's not sticking for any halfway measures. She goes for all out victory.
And then it waits for the right moment to launch a new offensive, the new offensive.
Yeah, I mean, and so because this presupposes, and this is always the case with Stoltenberg, well, Russia's just going to stop and say, okay, we're done, we're through, we're finished, we lost.
You were right.
You were right, exactly. Okay, all right, we'll pull everyone out. Oh, yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he presumed. How the hell is that going to happen? I mean, it's like... Putin is playing the same waiting game. He's doing a lot of waiting. Earlier on, he was waiting and seeing.
I thought this was about Israel. It's all about Ukraine. We've seen this before.
I think that was what's interesting, because her speech is almost identical to Biden's speech, which he delivered on the same day. So I think there's some coordination that's going on here. Counting on us, diverting our attention and our resources elsewhere. Now is the time to double down. Double down. This is back to the tools. We have the tools, whether on finance or equipment, to make sure that the cost of the war for Russia keeps rising and to deter those with intent. But again, how do you know Russia cannot meet those costs? I mean, you keep saying, okay, we're going to raise the cost, but if you raise the costs for Russia, you're also raising the costs for yourself, and you're raising the cost for Ukraine. So we can, as if somehow we can raise the cost just for Russia, but nobody else is going to have to pay the cost. And to deter those with intent who are watching us to see if our endurance can match theirs. This is why our sanctions are here to stay. Oh, that's good. So, you know, no let up ever.
So again, why would Russia negotiate?
Yeah, exactly.
There are no incentives ever.
No, none. This is why we have broken free for good of our dependence on Russian fossil fuels.
Well, that's not exactly true. As a matter of fact, that's patently not true. Russian energy goes to a second country, and then the European Union is third country, and they pay the premium.
They pay the premium. That's right. That's right. Yeah, exactly. That's the part that's always missing. That, you know, yeah. Well, where are you getting your energy? Well, you're buying it from India, and you're getting it at a stiff markup. So the same energy, but you're paying a hell of a lot more for it. And not you, European taxpayers are paying a hell of a lot more for it. Any solution of this conflict must be a lasting one and a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. And I
agree.
Right. And for this, Ukraine needs long-term security guarantees. Ukraine dreams of being in Europe and in NATO because it knows what it stands for. NATO and the European Union are standing for security, freedom, and prosperity. Well, I don't know about prosperity. What prosperity? I haven't, you know, no one can notice any of this prosperity.
What security, what freedom, and what prosperity?
Exactly. I mean, everyone's life.
I'm sure that in her villa or wherever she lives, I'm sure there's a lot of security and a lot of freedom and a hell of a lot of prosperity. I'm sure of that.
That's right. She's a very rich woman. She comes from a very rich family in Germany, and so she's always been very comfortable. I mean, her father was a famous. I mean, she didn't even get her start in politics by any skills. I mean, her father was a prominent CDU politician in West Germany, and that's how she got her start in politics. So everything has always been laid on for her. You know, and her husband is also very rich, because, you know, the von der Leyen, even, you know, that's her name, that's the name of her husband. You know, this is rich German families intermarrying. This is the old-fashioned Germany, the Germany that we don't actually see. Very wealthy families who have done well for generations, including during the time of the Nazi era. So there's
I want to talk about that too.
No, we don't. No, if you don't.
It's these things. You know, so much change, and some things just never change.
No. The von der Leyens, you know, they don't change. You know, those are families that go back generations.
They can weather it all.
Exactly. Yes. President Zelensky once said, you know, again, President.
Well, why is it? It's like Corinthians 4. You know?
It's always like Albert Einstein once said. You know, oh well, he once said. Okay. Hegel once said. Yeah. President Zelensky.
I don't know. George is going to finish the sentence, but I doubt he said it because somebody wrote it for him.
President Zelensky once said, there's one thing above all that motivates Ukraine soldiers. It is the expectation that one day they and their children will live in a free and prosperous country like ours. Who's the ours? I don't get that. I mean, who's the ours that she's referring to? Ours like Germany or Europe? I mean, or America. I mean, I don't want to say she's like ours. I mean, I don't get who's the ours.
Well, they have to address issues like corruption before you can have a prosperous country.
Yeah. If we want Ukraine to win, if we want Ukraine to rise from the ashes of this war, we must invest in Ukraine's future. This is what we mean when we say that we are with Ukraine for as long as it takes. Oh, that's exciting.
Well, you know, the thing is, George, is that after 20 months or so, I mean, it's not working. So at what point do you reboot and think about this? Okay. Because, I mean, it's almost getting to the point of being pathetic.
Right. Okay. That's right. That's right. And then what Europe and the United States are fighting for together is about freedom and democracy, security and opportunity. And then it says, this is where it's interesting. We have not forgotten that in World War II, democracy won over fascism and autocracy. But that isn't true. World War II was won by the Red Army. That was the Soviet Union won. Now, unless you're saying the Soviet Union represented democracy, but it was the Soviet Union, and in fact, the democracies were pretty much defeated by Hitler. One by one, Hitler just knocked them over. The United Kingdom only survived because the invasion would have been too great a challenge. But the democracies were all defeated by Hitler. I mean, he required the Red Army finally to bring this war to an end. But democracy won over fascism. Again, is a very dubious reading of World War II.
Well, if those that want to troll us, okay, I think George and I will come out solidly on the side that I would not call the Soviet Union under Stalin a democracy.
No, I don't think so. I mean, unless that's what she meant, and I don't think that's what she meant.
Come on, you're so mean to her, George.
The mean, yes. The triumph set the foundation of our peace order, and this is not only about the past. I mean, the less charitable interpretation, I think, is that she's pretty much just forgotten the role of the Soviet Union, just eliminated it from history, and that it's now becoming part of orthodoxy in the West, that somehow it was England and the United States and France that defeated Nazi Germany. I mean, I think that's it. It's just completely obliterated that part of history.
See, this is the onion of revisionism that George and I have referred to many times. What she just said there, like on an onion, a very, an additional thin, it's seemingly transparent, right. Cover, one extra skin around it. But this is a consistent, intentional effort to rewrite the history of the middle of the 20th century.
That's right, exactly right. And then that's why I believe it's the right thing for the United States to renew financial and military supplies support to Kiev. And that's why I believe it's the right thing for Europe to keep its own support up. The people in Ukraine are willing to die for our common values. Oh, that's nice.
George, I'm just so befuddled. The Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. It has been gone for over 30 years. It is a historical fact.
Right.
Okay. Right. A very real one. You can criticize the Russian Federation all you want. It's fine with me. Right. But just getting rid of the Soviet era it actually dilutes where you want to go, because you're not based in history. You're basing everything in a intentional cover-up, an illusion.
No, that's absolutely right. And I think there's an awful lot of that in Europe. I mean, when particularly, the Czech Republic, and, listen to these officials in the Czech Republic, they're still living in the kind of the era of communism. I mean, it's like somebody should sort of, knock. I mean, it's gone. It's not there. Soviet Union is not there anymore. Communism isn't there anymore. It's been gone for, 35 years. And, you're still living in this fantasy world. You have to be now middle-aged to have even a living memory of communism. And they're still living this fantasy world. Always, the Soviet.
Well, it's kind of akin to, it's something that I've never really understood. Turkey puts itself in the ridiculous situation of denying that there was a genocide against the Armenians. And I've talked to Turkish public officials privately, and I just said, look, there's such an easy path. It was the Ottoman Empire that did it. Right. It wasn't the modern state of Turkey. Yeah. I mean, obviously there is an overlap with the Young Turks and whatnot. Yeah. But I mean, blaming Turkey, I mean, there's an easy path to say, those Ottomans and those Young Turks, they were fanatics, okay? Yeah. But they won't let it go. They just can't let it go. It's just so weird.
No, that's exactly right. And they keep equating the two, and it's just so dumb. I mean, today, for instance, it's a national holiday in Hungary. It's October the 23rd. It's a Freedom Day. It's the day they commemorate the 1956 uprising. And Orban, I think, is among the smarter politicians, and says, this has got nothing, however much he goes on about 56 and so on, he knows that's not the same entity that we were up against in 56. This isn't the USSR. That's why he goes and meets Putin. But the rest, they're still, Orban is betraying the people of 56 because he goes and shakes hands with Putin. I mean, that's the dumbness you have to deal with.
But even I think, we can expand that, George, and said the Hungary of 1956 is not the Hungary of today. They're very different countries now.
Yeah.
That historical country and the country of today,
Right.
very different places.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. And so now this is the reaction to Ursula within Europe. This is Politico. Internal EU discontent grows at von der Leyen's neglect of Palestinian statehood. And so there's some 800 staffers have written her a letter accusing her of being too partisan toward Israel. And then European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is infuriating the EU's own foreign policy team by neglecting to mention the bloc's support for Palestinian statehood in the public remarks on the Israel-Hamas war. That's a bit of a problem if you go around purporting to speak on behalf of the Europe or even the EU, if you forget what the official foreign policy position of the EU is. And adding to the pressure on her, some 800 EU staff have also taken the unusual step of writing to protest that she's showing unjustifiable bias towards Israel in the conflict.
It's also the same thing is also happening in the U.S. State Department.
Yes, that's right. That's right. The latest flashpoint was a speech on Thursday at the Hudson Institute when she prioritized Israel's right to defend itself and neglected to mention the two-state solution that is a core part of the position of the European countries.
George and I've already mentioned this.
We mentioned that, but obviously it was the time factor. There just simply wasn't time. This speech, even though there was a lot of time to talk about Ukraine and Russia, but there wasn't time to talk about the two-state solution. One senior EU official commenting on her speech accused her of airing her own personal views and presenting an unbalanced view of where the EU stood on the crisis in the Middle East. Foreign policy, quote, is decided by member states, by the Council. The rest, with full respect, are personal opinions. They can be very legitimate, but they don't represent the position of the European Union as such. He complained. Somebody really ought to tell Ursula von der Leyen at some point, she's not actually president of the EU. I mean, I don't think she understands. I think she really does think she's president of the EU. I mean, she's always invited to all these events, the G7, the G20, UN General Assembly meeting. I mean, she's always there. And I guess it's all gone to her head. She's convinced that she's somehow president of the EU. Criticism of von der Leyen came to a head when she made an unscheduled trip to Israel, prompting a furious reaction from European diplomats. The EU top diplomat, Josep Borrell, oh, great.
Yay!
we haven't done anything on Borrell for a while. Even dared to issue a rare public rebuke of his boss. Von der Leyen, he said, is not entitled to represent EU views on foreign policy, which are normally coordinated between member countries. The official position of the European Union with any foreign policy issue is being fixed, I repeat, by the guidelines, Borrell told journalists in Beijing. Foreign policy is decided by the leaders of the EU's 27 countries at international summits and discussed by foreign ministers, chaired by me, he added. me, I'm doing this. It's me, I decide these things.
He's so insecure, God, so insecure. They all are. They're all very delicate souls, George.
That's it. Exactly. Because the only thing that really matters is the fight over turf. Who's the boss? That's all. Israel, Russia, Hamas, China. Who cares? It's who's numero uno. That's all that matters. Remember that whole thing when Erdogan, who got the chair, with Charles Michel or Ursula von der Leyen. That was a big deal because who's the number one here? I mean, it's Michel number one. He's senior to her. That was a crisis. There was a crisis in the EU.
Oh, we did a good video on that. That was fun.
Exactly. Sometimes a crisis means leaders have to act fast. According to a person with direct knowledge of the trip and its preparation, von der Leyen's decision to go to Israel was made at the last minute.
Yeah, obviously.
von der Leyen decided to travel with European Parliament President Roberta Metsola, who had previously arranged her own visit. So she just tacked on to this meeting.
So it was a kind of a girl trip. Girls out, girls out, night out.
Exactly. Girls want to have fun. But she did the same thing. Remember when Macron went to Beijing, and we did a video on that. It was a few months ago. She tacked onto that as well. You know, oh, I'm coming as well. You know, well, you're going to have to book your own flight and arrange your own hotel accommodation.
Okay, and your bar tab is your bar tab.
Bar tab, exactly. And incidentally, the Chinese did not invite her to the state banquet. Although she showed up, there was no invitation to the state banquet. Only Macron got the state banquet. She didn't get an invite to that. The tour toured an Israeli community decimated by Hamas gunmen and had to briefly take refuge in a bomb shelter when an air raid alert interrupted their meeting with Israeli President Itzhak Herzog.
I absolutely believe that. Yeah,
right. Exactly. Yes, quite. Yeah. Because it's always happening when they go to see Zelensky. You know, oh, air raid alert! Right, boom, everybody down. Yeah. Asked about the criticism of her trip on Monday, the Commission's chief spokesperson, Eric Mamer, said von der Leyen was merely representing the Commission, not the position of the 27 EU member countries. No one criticized von der Leyen for going to Ukraine and Bucha, Mamer told journalists. She can travel whenever she wants. She went to Israel to express solidarity with a country that had been the subject of an unprovoked terrorist attack. That's within her prerogative. No, so there, Josep Borrell.
Who is that? That's a girl named what?
This is Eric Mamer, who's a spokesperson.
Oh, I thought it was a woman because he's acting like a Karen.
Well, that's exactly. That's why I put on that voice. I mean, that's a
real Karen voice.
Yes, exactly. The text, so this is the text of the letter, was signed by 798 staffers working in Brussels and in the EU's embassies around the world, according to a draft seen by Politico. We are concerned by the unconditional support by the Commission you represent for one of the two parties. This support is being expressed in an uncontrolled manner. For example, EC buildings lit up with the Israeli flag. That's right. We're kind of pissed with seeing the EC buildings, that means European Commission buildings, lit up with the Israeli flag. Since the Commission employs more than 30,000 staffers, some officials suggested the letter didn't get much support. Well, actually, that's quite a lot of support, because if it's close to 1,000, and there are 30,000, that's 1 over 30, that's around 3%. That's not nothing. If 3%.
Well, and it George and I talk very dismissively of bureaucrats, but almost 800 of them, they're sticking their head up. Okay,
that's exactly. Most people are terrified.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. Yeah, because we know how everyone is very afraid. The punishment that they get if they criticize the boss. They're criticizing the boss here. So then they know that you get punished for that. So that's a lot of people sticking.
Yeah, well, and Ursula was in Washington looking for her next job, and these 30,000 staffers are all looking for their next job too.
That's right. Yet on Sunday, von der Leyen doubled down. Of course she did. She doubled down on her previous stance during a speech to the youth organization of her German center-right political group. While she stressed that any Israeli defense against the Hamas terrorist group must be in accordance with international law, she again did not mention Palestinian statehood, and instead just referred to necessary humanitarian aid, saying there is no contradiction in standing in solidarity with Israel and providing humanitarian aid in Gaza. So she obviously knows, again, which side her bread is buttered. So that's why she's making no mention of Palestinian statehood, just humanitarian aid, which is the position of the Biden administration. That's, we need to get some humanitarian aid in there. And that's it. She's not gonna go beyond that. And then von der Leyen also compared Israel's role in the conflict with Ukraine's defense against Russian aggression. All these conflicts have one thing in common. They're about the struggle between those who seek peace, balance, freedom, and cooperation, and those who do not want any of this because they profit from chaos and disorder. Well, that's very interesting, because it's news to me and news to you, I imagine, Peter, that EU and the United States and Israel stand for peace, balance, freedom and cooperation. Huh.
Well, I mean, the last quarter century, the West, NATO,
Yes.
has been antithetical to peace, balance, freedom, and cooperation,
Yeah.
particularly in that region.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's
I mean,
right.
wouldn't you think that, say, we started down this path with Afghanistan and Iraq. Maybe we shouldn't do this again. There's no hesitation.
None of them. And then the others who profit from chaos and disorder. Well, if there's one country that profits from chaos and disorder, that means that's been the United States. The United States goes out of its way to spread chaos and disorder and then present itself as the solution to the problem. It spread chaos and disorder in Syria by trying to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. And then, hey, well, we need to address the problem of ISIS. And then we need to address the problem of the Kurds because we hate disorder.
And while we're doing that, we're going to illegally occupy a third of the country.
Exactly. Von der Leyen also took a very critical position toward Iran. Well, that's a surprise. That's a shocker. Saying that Tehran stood behind Hamas. She added, Iran has no interest whatsoever in this region coming to peace. On the contrary, Iran wants to foment violence and chaos because that secures its influence.
Okay, well, where's the EU peace plan?
Where's the EU peace plan? Yeah, exactly. Where is it exactly? Well, there isn't one. Just as on Ukraine, there isn't one. I think that's it. Yeah. So that's von der Leyen. She's obviously making a very compelling case for her being the next NATO Secretary General. And she's but so extreme is her position that it's just aroused just fury within the EU. And so, hey, you're pursuing the Washington's agenda. This has nothing to do with the EU position on the Middle East.
I think you said accidentally just got it perfectly there, George. Is that her whole agenda is herself?
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know who she really thinks she is and what other people think she is, but that's an embarrassing speech. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, a sophomore in high school would be chastised for your cliches, your lack of logic. You don't make a compelling, positive case. Right. You don't define your terms, and you actually just slur everyone you don't like. C-, try better.
Yes, I agree. But if you fail upwards, as she undoubtedly has done, she's probably she obviously regards that NATO Secretary General's position as a step up, and I guess it is a step up. But NATO obviously has a seniority now with the
direct
EU,
line to Washington. Yeah,
exactly. And so I think she regards that as the promotion. I can't see anyone else who's got the inside track on that position. I think
maybe the Finn chick will have been rehabilitated.
But she's now with the Tony Blair Institute, and maybe that's just a little bit embarrassing at this stage because Tony Blair's been a little bit discredited by the Iraq War, a little bit. So I think Ursula has the inside track, and she made sure that she gets the inside track.
But this dovetails perfectly into what George and I have been saying for years here, is that NATO is the capturing force, okay? Right. Because we have the UK that is outside of the European Union, so you put NATO is the umbrella, which everything falls under, and whoever is running NATO is the king, queen, prince, whatever, with a direct line to Washington, okay? And then it's a conveyor belt, it's been decided, and then they move downward here. And she's the perfect candidate for, she's obviously somebody of very limited intelligence. Okay? I'm sure she can, get through a shopping list at a grocery store, and that's good. Everybody needs to be able to do that. But that kind of skill is not enough to run the block, as they
no, that's right. But Stoltenberg is not exactly, a high-powered.
He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
No, but he has enough cliches at his disposal to get through a news conference, because he knows he's never going to get challenged. He knows he always gets a slavish press corps asking him phoning questions. Do you think you're doing enough to rally Europe against Russia? It's like, well, I think we're doing a pretty good job. So that's all you have to do in that position.
I bet when Ursula finished her speech, people are saying, that was brilliant.
I'm sure.
Oratory.
That's right.
We haven't heard this kind of oratory
Exactly.
since Winston Churchill,
That's
Abraham Lincoln.
That's it. Yeah.
Moses.
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
Oh, she's a charmer.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm sure. That Hudson.
She always has that kind of interesting. I can't really describe her hair. The coif thing,
yes,
but she got the coif thing.
She has.
Okay?
She has.
I have limited vocabulary. My lexicon is limited when it comes to hair.
Yeah.
But I always notice her coif.
Exactly. The coif and the nice clothes. Very expensive clothes. She's always very nicely dressed. Unlike Angela Merkel, she's always very nicely dressed.
Angela Merkel could have worn Armani, or she could have worn a burlap sack, but it still had the same effect.
It still had the same effect. No, but she's always, and you can see how Ursula, she's elegant, slender. She's takes good care of herself. I mean she projects a kind of tight control. She's always going to be nicely turned out in any circumstance. And I think as they look at her job application, you've got the job. Congratulations. Well, thank you very much.
Because the war in Ukraine, it's going to go on a long time.
It's going to be, that's right. You're going to be there running it.
It's really sad, just to kind of wrap this up here, is that the criticism, and George and I don't like to cite Politico, but in the Politico article, the European Union has a very long, studied, and I would even say balanced approach to Palestine, and now that's all gone, and it's a signal, and it enables others to say, we're going to forget that, and promote, and these are my words, but I firmly believe it, ethnic cleansing against people. For a German politician to be on that side of the argument, it really should raise concerns, George.
But that's the thing. I mean, the EU has become so subordinate to the United States that it doesn't really matter too much what the EU says unless you're echoing what the Americans said. So Sergeant Schultz, after the bombing of the hospital, said there needs to be an investigation of what happened. And the Americans announced the next day, there will be no investigation because Israel has already provided us with all the information we need. So that's all there is to it. And the matter is closed.
There's got to be somebody in Washington that just waits with bated breath. How can we slap him down again? We got him again.
Exactly.
There will be no investigation.
No, because the matter is closed.
Didn't you get the memo? Okay, I don't know. Okay, you got to keep up. Keep up, Sergeant Schultz. No, it's just what my point is. It's just another humiliation. Right. And he just sucks it up.
That's right. And I should mention here that when in that interview with Chancellor Schroeder, the former Chancellor of Germany, Gerhard Schroeder, he was asked, who do you think, I think he was asked, do you think the Americans blew up Nord Stream? And he said, well, President Biden stood next to Chancellor Scholz and pretty much said, there will be no Nord Stream. And Schroeder said, that pretty much answers your question. So that's Schroeder, the former German chancellor, that answers your question. So Schroeder isn't buying into the whole, it was the Ukrainians. He just said, that answers your question. And of course, it does answer the question.
Right. That's right. What a pathetic performance. And it was on the same day that Biden gave his speech.
Exactly,
so, come on, everyone. Who did the same person write both speeches? Or the same team of people?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look even how it's structured,
right, exactly,
and what issues are weighed through the presentation, it is an exact mirror of what Biden said.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Absolutely. The whole way in which she tied the two issues together using the same ridiculous platitudes, and that we've got to come up with the money. We have to got to come up with the money, come up with them for Ukraine. So that's it. It's exactly the same with Biden. You start talking about Israel, and suddenly, we're onto some completely different subject. Like you've taken us to some other country. Where are we? What's going on? Suddenly we're talking about Putin. So exactly the same.
It's at least you got to, give them a hat tip. They really tried to square this. They didn't succeed. Okay. But there was a lot of effort in trying to marry these two extremely different issues here.
Yeah.
Okay. But one thing they did succeed in doing, never contextualize it, never give any history. Okay. Right. And the writer or writers of both these speeches is aware never to contextualize.
Right. That's right.
And that takes work, George.
That's it. Yeah.
It's kind of like, alcoholics. It took a lot of work to become an alcoholic. I mean, I had to work at it every day for years. Okay. It wasn't easy.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Well, Queen Ursula, you just sold your soul. Okay. I don't understand people like her. She's really rich, never has to do anything. I'm sure she probably doesn't even know how to drive a car. Okay. Right. Does she have any idea what a pint of beer costs or bread?
No.
Okay.
No.
Does she have any idea what anything costs? Okay.
Right.
And, and people like that, they're so easily, I guess because she has nothing to want for, it's just all she has to do is soothe her ego and her sense of self. Okay. Yeah. That's really kind of the end game of Western civilization. Right. It's only about me and how I feel.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I'm quite sure that if you were in her inner circle and you'd wonder, what does she really care about? I'm sure she cares about that, if she's slighted by anybody. I mean, that's probably when, Josep Borrell slighted me at this meeting.
They're all Hillary Clinton.
Exactly.
I
didn't care that I needed. I should have been, why wasn't I in the center of the photograph? I'm sure that's what motivates her.
But if you were to ask her, what was that meeting about? I wasn't in the center of the picture.
Yes.
And I'm sure they have, wall after wall of standing. Well, what was that about? It doesn't matter. Okay.
Exactly.
See that dress? Dress. Okay.
That's it. Exactly. And why was I elbowed aside by the Finn chick? How come the Finn chick was closer to Biden than I was? I mean, that's just simply absolutely unacceptable.
But the juxtaposition is, of course, is Donald Trump. How was that? It was an excellent meeting. That meeting was excellent. It was the most excellent meeting ever held with that guy. And what about this one? Oh, it's perfect meeting. That was perfect. Yes, and he'll tell you exactly what happened. Okay, down to the monogram on the napkins. Okay, which of course he has a thing for. Okay, yes. No, I mean, and then I don't think of Donald Trump as much of an intellectual. I think he's very smart. He's a very smart guy. Okay, but these people don't. They're not intellectual. They're not even smart.
No. And they don't have any appeal, any kind of, I won't even use charisma because that's just too grand, but they don't even have any kind of public persona that has any kind of appeal. I mean, the moment she appears anywhere and starts speaking, people just go, this is really disgusting. A little bit like Hillary Clinton. She's not quite as dislikable as Hillary Clinton, but the same thing. I mean, you just don't have anything other than you move from one position to another, and you always got some big job lined up, and that's what she is. I mean, ultimately, it's what the cliche of the moment. That's all you can expect.
Well, it's also. Do you think it's never? Do you think I represented what the public will is? It's always. Do you think is Blinken going to be happy with? Did he approve this? Did Sullivan read this? Will you make sure he reads this? Okay, that's all it's about. It's they're always looking to the powers that be, and the people. Who cares about them? Okay,
no, that's certainly not von der Leyen.
Yeah. Okay. What a pathetic performance, but that's where we are, everyone. And I ended one of my programs saying, if you believe in God and you pray, You need to do a lot of praying because a lot of really bad stuff is happening, and it's going to get only a lot worse. Yeah. All right, everybody. This is The Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on Locals, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. And I know, buddy, that's your cue. Visit our store, and today's Monday. Tomorrow, see, he's on cue.
It's 3 p.m. Exactly, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Please join me with comments, criticism, suggestions, and then on the way out the door, think about little buddy, because little buddy is saying, hey, you know, I'm also looking at my next job, because I'm not going to be here forever, you know, worrying about what's going on in the tip jar. I've got bigger things in mind.
I'm having my suspicions here because he's getting so fat. Now, where are you getting those coins, huh? You're going out at night, going to 7-Eleven and eating those hot dogs.
Yeah, maybe helping yourself.
Or whatever they call them.
We're going to have to hold an investigation into this. So we're very grateful for all of your help and friendship and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve the technology. And above all, we're not going to have to get to the bottom of this, the body problem. So remember, if you like The Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.